Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hey guys, it is Magic 8 Ball time.
That was really sad, lame.
Side effects. I don't even know if you could hear it.
I was shaking it up, and it says, future uncertain.
Womp womp. Well, this was yours that you chose this time. So what did you choose to bring back, and why?
The one about the side chat from 2 years ago about imposter syndrome. This is my ET in a wig episode.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to get any more into it than that. Because
now you have to listen and be like, what is ET in a wig?
I start out the episode and you're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I have a point. And I do get there eventually.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, this is I brought this one back because, this is still something I grapple with from time to time. And everyone grapples with this.
Yeah, this is pretty universal.
Imposter syndrome is just, it's insidious. And so I just felt like this deserves a reboot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is afflicting people all the time.
Yeah.
Whenever you're at your most vulnerable too is when it really likes to strike. Whenever you're most uncomfortable and unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. That might be part of why I decided to bring it back. Yeah. Is because I feel that way at this stage.
Yeah.
2 years later, there's big transitions, and I'm like,
just vulnerable.
I don't like it. And so here we go. Let's listen to. It's ridiculous, but I think you're gonna like it, and I think it's certainly gonna leave you with a visual you won't be able to burn out of your retinas. So
at the very least,
you're welcome for that. All right, we'll be back at the end. Okay, so I haven't seen the movie E.T. in 15 years or more, probably. But it doesn't matter because I remember this one part where E.T. is in a closet and he comes out and he's dressed in a little dress and he's got a little purse and he's wearing a nice blonde wig and a little bowler hat.
Uh-huh.
And for whatever reason, when I think about the prospect of dating, I imagine all of those girls on The Bachelorette or The Bachelor or whatever. I don't watch The Bachelor. It's important that you know I don't watch The Bachelor. I'm not dissing you if you do. It's just not my thing. If that's how you unwind, that's fine. I just can't stand it. It really, really, it makes me angry. I have too intense emotions to be able to withstand that without feeling anything. So I can't watch it. But I know that this lineup of women, they all look the same. They've got beautiful blonde or glossy brunette hair, and they've got incredibly white teeth, and they're super tan, and they all have a 6-pack, and they're all dental hygienists or nurses. And when I think about dating, I think about the lineup of girls on The Bachelorette, and then I am E.T. in a bowler hat. That
I was wondering where all this was going.
You know I always have a point. If you guys need a visual, please Google E.T. in a wig. And you will get a very delightful visual of what I'm trying to...
Wow.
The point I'm trying to make. Which is that the prospect of dating has always given me imposter syndrome. On the outside, I think I look more like a contestant from The Bachelor than E.T.
Well, on that spectrum, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. I'm blonde. I look perfectly presentable when I give a crap. But there's a belief that I have about myself that's clearly a little bit skewed or flawed.
Right, because no one else is looking at you and seeing E.T. in a bowler
No,
hat.
everyone else is seeing, well, that's just a normal girl, right?
Right.
But to me, I'm like, I am so weird and I am so different. And people think, and I don't really care what people think, to be clear. It's not like I care what men think about me, because if you think I look like E.T. in a bowler hat, that doesn't really bother me. But it's more of like I feel like a fraud, and it feels like I shouldn't be doing this.
You feel like out of place in that world.
Yeah, it makes me so uncomfortable that I've never wanted to do it. I've never wanted to participate in it because I felt like such a fraud and I felt so different, even though it's very clear that I'm actually not that different and not that weird, and that the extreme I have in my mind is not at all what reality would suggest. That's my imposter syndrome.
Wow. Okay. Well, like, now that you've given such a vivid example, let's actually define what we're talking about when we talk about imposter syndrome. So these are people who are entirely competent or entirely able to do the thing that they're trying to do, like date in your example, perfectly competent.
I mean, I still will argue that I'm not, but I will hold on to my imposter syndrome hard on this. But yes, continue.
So people who are entirely competent, but who are constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop and be exposed as the fraud that they really are.
Yeah. It's like
you're afraid of being exposed as E.T. in a bowler hat.
Yeah, you know what? To take it to another level of nerdery, it's like I'm E.T. in a bowler hat who took Polyjuice potion to be a contestant on The Bachelor, and I'm afraid that my time is going to expire, and I'm going to slowly like melt into that little alien in a wig and a bowler hat while I'm on a date, and I'm going to be like, hey.
It's a lot of cultural references all in one analogy.
There's something for everybody. E.T. is like over 30 years old, right? So we've got something for all. We welcome you here. Clarity on Fire. But yeah, it's right. It's a fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Even though there's probably nothing really to expose, but the fear is strong, and it will make you feel like you constantly have to be proving yourself.
Or you have to be on your guard, or you should just not even bother.
Right. Well, and I think that's actually, we'll get into that. When is it worth getting over it? And when is it not?
Sure. I know that, okay, I don't know where I got this from, but I do know that a client told me this at one point. I'm sorry that we don't fact check this podcast. Should be more like journalistically responsible and like look things up before I quote them. But I'm not spewing it off as exact fact. So as long as you guys know that, I feel like it's okay. But
major caveat.
I've heard that at Stanford, they did, or they still do, they would ask the incoming freshman class to raise their hand if they believed that they were the one mistake that the admissions department had made. And maybe this was like a blind thing, because I can't imagine people would raise their hand if they were able to look around. Maybe they were blindfolded, or maybe it was like heads up, stepping up type of thing. I don't know. But they were asked to raise their hand if they believed they were the one, oops, we let you in, we shouldn't have, but you're here, like, keep it quiet kind of thing. 2/3 of the incoming class at Stanford raised their hand.
Isn't that wild? And this is Stanford.
This is Stanford, where like everyone who gets in was the valedictorian of their high school class.
Right. So these are naturally high achievers. And I think that imposter syndrome actually affects more high achievers than anyone else. And there's probably all kinds of reasons for that. But partially it's probably because if you're a naturally high achiever, it probably means that, you know, you've been good at things for much of your life. And it might feel like if this was easy for me to be good at, then first of all, maybe it's not that big of a deal, right? Maybe if it comes that easily, it doesn't matter that much. But also, it might be, if it comes this easily to me, maybe it can go away as easily, right? Maybe I will, if I had this naturally, maybe I won't be able to maintain this. So that can create some imposter syndrome.
Let's break that down, because there's multiple reasons within that
This is like one main reason, and there's sub-reasons.
Well, there's just, right, there are a lot of reasons that people experience imposter syndrome. One of them is that it feels like it came too easily to you. So I want you guys to remember that you are habituated to being you. So you don't have a really good read on what comes naturally to you and what doesn't come naturally to other people. And I think we tend to have imposter syndrome around things we actually are good at and things that we actually have a perfectly decent amount of talent or ability at. But because it came easily, we fear that something must be wrong and the other shoe must be about to drop. And that, I think, gets to a deeper problem with like our culture in general, which is that we are programmed to believe that if something comes easily, it's not a good thing.
Right. We have
that
this
it's wrong
as a culture that hard work is
the pinnacle.
Right. Hard work is everything. And if you don't put hard work into it, it doesn't really count.
If you didn't struggle, you must be doing something wrong. And I think that couldn't be farther from the truth. That if something comes to you easily, it's actually a sign of alignment. That you are in a state where you're able to express yourself fully. And there's not a lot of roadblocks. There's not a lot of force. It's the difference between, paddling upstream versus paddling downstream and being carried by the current. Ease is a good thing. It's a sign you're in alignment.
It means you're doing what you're meant to be doing. If you're doing something that comes naturally and you're good at it, you're in the right spot.
Well,
usually,
right.
As long as you obviously like it as well. I mean, there's plenty of things that you can have strengths that you don't like. That's not what we're talking about here. But if you are doing something that feels like fulfilling and it feels genuine and feels good and it comes naturally, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong or you're not working hard enough because you're not struggling. It actually means you're probably doing exactly what you're meant to be doing.
Or at least you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So weirdly, when you have imposter syndrome or the things that you have imposter syndrome around, question whether or not they might actually come easier to you than most people. Which is kind of funny when I think of that from my dating imposter syndrome perspective. Is this maybe because I'm actually better, quote unquote, at dating than most people? And I would say, weirdly, depends on how you define dating, but maybe. Because I have first of all, I'm trained as a coach. My powers of discernment have always been very strong.
And good questioning.
But they've gotten way better as I've become a coach. I can see someone's character very quickly. I don't even really think that I have to meet someone very many times in order to have a decent understanding of who they are as a person, whether or not I like them. And also, I'm very okay with just being myself. I'm not trying to hide or put up a front or people please or do any of those things. So in terms of making connections with people, I'm pretty good at that because I'm not afraid of being seen for who I am. And I don't really care if you reject me. So again, why do I have imposter syndrome around this? Maybe because it actually, like, expressing myself to people is something I'm pretty good at doing. And it feels maybe weirdly too easy in that way. And that must be wrong. Because it should be hard. Because everyone says that dating is hard, for example.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason it scares me. It scares me because I'm an introvert who doesn't really like meeting new people for the most part. So there's that, but I don't have imposter syndrome around that. I just don't like it.
Right. I think another thing that comes into this that can create some imposter syndrome is comparison. So when you're looking around, say you're in your office and it feels like, okay, I feel like I'm doing pretty well, right? Or I seem to be getting good reviews, but I still feel like a fraud. And that could be because you're looking around and it might seem like everyone else around you is so confident and so good at what they're doing and is getting so many promotions and it seems so easy to them. And you're thinking, well, if I don't feel as confident as they look, then I must not really belong here. But as a coach, what I can tell you is having worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of people now, I can tell you everyone has those same inner insecurities of, am I good enough? And do people like me? And Am I worthy of getting these promotions? So no matter how confident you might seem on the outside, I guarantee you they're having all the same thoughts as you, which means if everyone is feeling like an imposter, then no one's really an imposter.
No, we're all insecure.
Right.
And we're all questioning whether we deserve to be where we are.
We're all in the same boat here. So this is like when you look at people's social media feeds and you know that they're curating it and you're still comparing it to your own life, even though they're showing you the highlight reel of their life. But when you can keep in mind, they're a human too. They're going through all kinds of things that I'm not seeing. There's a whole internal dialogue that they have that I don't have. It can make you feel less like the anxious, freaked out, insecure one who's questioning your place here. And remember, all of those thoughts, those I'm not enough thoughts, that's the most human thing about all of us. There's no escaping that. So the fact that you're feeling that doesn't make you an imposter. It just makes you a human. Like all the other humans that you interact with.
Yes. You're not the only person feeling this way. And I think that imposter syndrome is so insidious because it makes you too afraid to talk about it, because then everyone will know you're an imposter. So everyone is going around assuming they're alone and they're the only one, when actually we're all afflicted with this and no one is willing to talk about it for the most part. So this is just wiring. This is just how we're wired. It's a biological thing. You've heard us talk about this plenty of times, but we always get back to this place because it's just how it is, that you're wired to not want to get ostracized from a tribe. Biologically, your brain still thinks we're cave people. And
it's the same reason we people please, which if you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one too, because there's some overlap here.
Huge Venn diagram situation happening here. But yeah, you're programmed to not want to be ostracized because in a different time that your brain doesn't realize we're not still living in, if you get kicked out of a group, you're dead.
Yep.
You're left for dead, literally. And so imposter syndrome is a way of protecting you. It's like, well, let's not let the tribe find out that I'm actually the dumbest one or the least valuable one, because the tribe doesn't need the weakest link.
Then they'll kick me out in favor of someone more helpful or
just they'll kick me out because I'm a detriment to them. I'm a drag on their resources. I can't be a strain on the group's resources. So like if I'm not worthy of like my food and water and shelter, then I will literally be dead.
So imposter syndrome is often the little lizard voice in your brain that's left over from when we were cave people.
Yes. So you can't, it's understandable that it's so loud because it's primal.
Right. It's wired for survival.
And it's just trying to keep you safe. And it doesn't really care what it says in order to do that, because it doesn't matter if it has to be mean or if it has to tell you things that aren't true, because in its mind, keeping you alive is more important than telling you the truth or being accurate or saying nice things or saying it in a nice way.
Yep.
So no, you have to feel like an imposter in order to do, quote unquote, do a good job. That's what your lizard brain thinks.
Yep.
But let's talk about that for a second. I don't actually think feeling like an imposter is a great source of motivation.
No, it's a motivation out of pure fear and panic and anxiety. And it's not sustainable either. It's a sustainable way of motivating yourself, because you will get burnt out if you continue to act from that place. It's an exhausting motivator.
And this is where that Venn diagram with people pleasing comes in, is that people pleasers burn themselves out over and over and over again, because there will never be enough pleasing you can do or enough proving yourself you can do in order to be safe, because it starts over the next day.
Right.
You never can bank enough.
Right. Every day you have to go and reprove why you deserve to be in that setting.
So you're just running scared all the time.
Yes. And if you ever feel like, you do feel like you can get into a detriment, right? Well, yesterday I don't feel like I was good enough, so now I have to do extra, but you never get ahead, ever. It's like running a losing race every day of your life, which should explain why it very quickly leads to burnout. This is not a place where you can do good work for a long period of time. I also want to point out that imposter syndrome usually, and I will give an exception for this in just a minute, but it usually is an indicator that something is really important to you. So if you really care about doing a good job at work, or if you really care about being a good spouse or being a good mother or whatever it is that you have imposter syndrome
Can you imagine
around.
someone who doesn't give a crap about being a good mother?
Right.
I mean, there are people
They
like
do.
that. They just don't realize they're
I don't think
that.
they're listening to our podcast.
I doubt it.
But if you really care about that, then it makes sense why you would have imposter syndrome, because you're afraid of not being good at something that really, really matters to you.
No one's going to come up to me and be like, Rachel, you have imposter syndrome about being a softball player. And I'm like, well,
No, I just am an imposter.
no, I just don't care. I can't do sports. That's established. So you have to be invested in something in order to feel like an imposter.
Well, except I have had the instance where I felt like I had imposter syndrome absolutely at one of my jobs before coaching full time, where I was working on government contracts, really deep in like nuanced, detailed legal stuff. And I didn't give a single crap. I didn't really know what I was doing. I did a good enough job to be passable, and everyone actually thought I was doing a really good job. I got promoted and I got raises and I got good feedback.
May I suggest that was more about how nice you were and your personality, and people just liked you rather than the work you were doing?
That's probably was part of my imposter syndrome.
I think I would have gotten fired if I were in it. Actually, they kind of did meet me, and
that's true.
They didn't want me at their workshop because I was too intense for them. I did get fired, and I wasn't even hired there, so that should tell you something.
That's true. You did get fired.
It was worth it. I would do it again.
I think that's maybe why I was extra nice there, was because
you were people-pleasing more to keep your job.
Look over here. Don't look over here at the part where I don't really understand what I'm doing and I don't care enough to learn, because I really didn't care about the actual work. I'm slightly embarrassed now to say that I spent a couple of years there and just never cared enough to really learn it. But in that instance, it wasn't just that I was feeling like an imposter. I was one. I actually didn't belong there. It was not the right place, not the right environment, not the right work. And so it wasn't me holding myself back. That was actually imposter syndrome working with my intuition saying, get out. This is not your place. So I don't know if that even quite counts as imposter syndrome. I sure felt like an imposter.
Well, I think that, yes, it does. It doesn't. Okay. It does, because there are now going to be people saying, wait, how do I tell if I'm a real imposter or I just think I'm an imposter?
Right. Right. And I would say, I have to say, I knew in that moment, I just don't care. There's a difference in saying I really care about, if you have imposter syndrome around being a parent, we'll say, because I know that's a big one. There's so much guilt and angst.
I feel like
around,
a bad mom.
Am I good enough parent? Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to flat out tell you, in that scenario, I know you care about it enough that it's not like I have imposter syndrome because this is the wrong thing for me. Right. It's just because it's hard and it matters a lot and you don't want to mess it up. And that's why the imposter syndrome is showing up in that context. In something like a job, if it feels like I really want this, I really like this, I like the people, I like what I'm doing, I just genuinely don't feel like I'm good enough, that's a very different experience than I don't want to be here anyway, I'm mentally checked out, I'm not really doing the work because I don't care about the work. And maybe I feel like an imposter because I'm not doing enough, but it's because I don't care to do enough. That's a different experience. And you can feel that in your body. You can feel either the tug towards something, but the fear that I'm not going to be good enough for the thing I want, versus I'm not good enough because I don't care. And I've had plenty of clients tell me, I know I'm capable of a lot more than what I'm doing, but I just can't muster up the energy.
Yeah.
And that's the second scenario we're talking about, in which case, maybe you're feeling like an imposter on purpose because you actually don't belong.
Because you have no alignment with what you're doing. And
exactly.
You're an imposter there because there's some place where you're actually meant to be and it's authentic. And I don't know what the opposite of an imposter is. But I wish I could come up with like a poster.
I'm thinking more like a tribe member. I know we already used that.
No, we can't use that.
But
That's passion profile result.
It feels like being like a belonging. Belonging is the opposite of...
Yeah, okay.
Being part of something.
Strike poster off of the list.
We can make up words if we want to and just say that's the opposite. But
Shakespeare did it all the time. Why can't I? So, okay, here's a question for you. Let's see if Kristen can coach me on the fly. Are you ready? You know me, and you know how I feel about dating.
Mm-hmm.
Is it imposter syndrome or not?
I think it's both and.
Okay, so here you go. It can be both and. Explain.
I think it can be both and. I think there's some aspect of it where...
Oh, wait. Can we pause and let me say that I'm sorry about the dog to all of you people. She's barking, and I know you can hear it. And once again, here's an update on her physical therapy. It's going really well. She just went down to a lower level of laser treatment today, so she doesn't need to wear goggles anymore. Now I understand parental milestones, how people are like, oh, I don't want my kid to grow because I want her to heal, but I also really like the goggles.
They were really cute.
They were really cute. She's doing great, and she's getting better all the time.
But she still has to be here and can't go
I mean,
anywhere else.
she'll be here for probably another month at least. So just buckle up. Okay. Continue coaching me, please, around both and imposter syndrome. I have it some places, I don't have it others. Because this is a nuanced thing. I don't think it's all or nothing for people. I do think that there are scenarios like mine where it can be a little bit of both, and then it's really hard to know what's right.
Yes. So in your instance, knowing all of the intricacies the way
she knows this way better than anyone else.
I think you might have some imposter syndrome around assuming you're not good at something that you actually would probably be pretty good at, but you just hate it.
You tell me that all the time. I say, right. I'm not good at meeting new people. And you're like, but I've
seen you meet a lot of new people.
I've seen you meet new people, and you're totally fine at it. You actually are very engaging with people and winning with people. Yes. And I don't feel like that.
Right. So I do think in some arenas, you think, I'm going to be terrible at this. I'm going to be so weird and awkward and different, and no one's going to understand me ever. And I think that might be where your imposter syndrome is showing up. Well, the kind that's genuine, that's I'm actually good at something, but I think I'm not as good as I am.
I think I'm an imposter, but I'm not.
Right. In another way, I think you are built in the way that you maybe shouldn't be approaching dating the way a lot of people do, in a more conventional way, because it just feels so misaligned.
What's conventional? Let's explain that to people.
I would say online dating, going out with a bunch of people.
Oh, like playing
the waters,
playing the numbers game.
Yeah.
Oh God, no! I'm gonna throw up right now.
Right. So in that part, in that side of things, I think you feel like an imposter because it's actually wrong.
Well, because there's so much of it, and this is dating. This is 80% of humanity is operating on a surface level that I just can't understand, and it's very hard for me, and I don't like it. And that's not like you need to just. It's actually right for you to adjust to surface level conversations. No, I don't need to adjust to surface level conversations. It's okay to be a deep person. It's okay to only want to connect on a deeper level with people, which means I'm probably going to meet far less people than the average, like, casual online millennial dater.
Right.
Or whatever. In person, online, it doesn't matter. I'm going to probably connect with far fewer people. And that pleases me.
Well, and I think right there, that's the distinguishing factor here. Because if you're trying to figure out what parts of my imposter syndrome are leading me to just this is wrong, and what parts are holding me back from something that might be right.
Right. Because like the shit sandwich, and if you don't understand what we're talking about, go listen to the Big Magic bonus book club episode we did a few weeks ago. We talk about what the shit sandwich is. Or I can also link to the blog I wrote about shit sandwiches in the episode description. But the shit sandwich is basically, it's the thing that you have to do in order to get where you want to go, but you don't really like eating it. But it's kind of the
part of
it's like
deal.
The 20% toll you pay for 80% payoff.
Yeah.
And I think with dating, as with many things in life, dating is the 20% shit sandwich you eat in order to potentially, get married and have a family one day. Things I'm interested in doing. And so, right. And so at this point, okay, I guess I'm willing to kind of do it or be exposed to new people potentially because I like the idea of that payoff. But I'm not willing to do it in a way that doesn't align with who I am.
Right. And I think that is the crux here. So if you have imposter syndrome around something you really don't care about or want to do anyway,
and you don't, the end result
cares?
Doesn't matter, right?
Who cares? sure, I had imposter syndrome in that past job, but if anything, it was helpful information because it was leading me to get out.
Your career path was not in government proposal writing.
No, God, no. So if you really don't want to do it anyway, and if you got a lot of relief from someone saying you don't have to do that, then great. That means your imposter syndrome is actually a great sign. It's a gift that's trying to lead you away from something that's not working. If you say, I really want this. I'm scared of it, but I want this, or I want to be good at this, or I want to grow in this area. I'm just afraid I'm not good enough, or I'm afraid I'm not going to do well enough or be worthy of the next level.
Or people are going to think I'm a fraud, or they're going to think I'm weird, or I'm going to get judged. Then
that's imposter syndrome that's worth trying to move through. And we can actually talk about what that starts to look like. So if you have imposter syndrome, and
I wasn't even planning to talk about that, but you seem to have ideas, so let's go.
Well, I don't have a 3-part plan for you or anything, but I do think one big factor in lessening your imposter syndrome is being vulnerable and telling someone. And I don't mean telling your boss or the person who feels like the most scary person to tell this to, but tell your best friend who is going to support you, or tell your mom, or tell someone safe, because what imposter syndrome is at its core is shame. It's a shameful
fear
feeling
of not being worthy or good enough.
It feels shameful to say that the Stanford kids, they probably felt somewhat ashamed to think, I think I'm the mistake.
And I'm going to let everyone down if I admit to it.
And the one thing that shame can't withstand is being spoken out loud.
It can't withstand like having a light shined on it. It thrives in darkness.
Yes. And so when you don't tell anyone, you have to keep proving yourself so that no one ever finds out that you're an imposter. That will break your spirit. But if you can have a couple of confidants who say, you know what? I'm so afraid that I'm not good enough at this, or I feel like a fraud sometimes. I guarantee you, first of all, what you're going to hear is people saying, really? What?
Well, that's the thing, is people are going to tell you you're wrong.
Right. People are going to discount your fear. And they're probably going to say, you know what? I feel that too, in the same area or in a different area of my life. But I know exactly what you're saying because I have that feeling.
So I have shared imposter syndromes with my friends, including this one, the whole like dating thing. And all of them have been questioning me and picking me apart. And making me see that I'm not as weird or crazy as I think I am, which is really helpful. And then also when I have friends come to me and they share things like I'm not a good mom, I think it's insane when I hear them say that about themselves.
I know.
And so I'm thinking, if my friends tell me things in vulnerable confidence that they fear about themselves, and I can assure them it's so not true, then I must be along the same lines as them, right? Like, I deserve that level of acceptance and understanding that I'm giving to my friends, because I totally give them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't think they're an imposter. So why would I think that about myself?
Right.
Other than my lizard brain wants me to. That's it. That's really the only reason.
So there's probably other ways of moving through imposter syndrome, and sometimes it's just reminding yourself, this is a survival fear. This is not real.
This isn't me. This is my lizard brain.
Right.
We teach our clients to name this voice. We call it the gremlin.
It's their inner mental critical voice that's constantly trying to keep them small and not trying anything different.
And
or
believing
new.
that they're not enough in whatever way.
Well, and out of protection. Right. Just like the lizard brain is trying to protect you.
I think I've named mine Sharon on a previous podcast.
Mine is named Clyde.
That's such a dumb name.
Well, it's because it's the joke name that my dad called me when my mom was pregnant.
I feel like that's mean to Clyde.
But I actually don't hate Clyde. I think Clyde is...
Okay, to each their own.
Yeah, I think Clyde is trying to protect me, and he's trying to do a good job. He's misguided.
He's not very good at his job.
He's very good at what he thinks his job is, but...
I think your gremlin is the real imposter.
Yeah. Whoa.
But it's important to make that voice, to clarify that voice isn't you.
Yes.
Because you're not the one who's saying things like you're weird, you're not good enough, people are going to find out, the other shoe is going to drop. It's Clyde or Sharon or insert your gremlin name here. And when you realize, oh God, that Sharon, she just will not give it a rest. It's just, it sounds silly, but it's very helpful, and it's a lot easier to recognize it when you can separate it from your own thoughts. Because everyone has those thoughts. They are a dime a dozen. Everyone is going around saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not likable, people are going to reject me, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. Everyone is thinking that about something. And so it's not unique. You're not special. You are not special for having these thoughts. So you can't treat them like they're special.
No. They're run-of-the-mill.
You can't take them seriously because they're not special.
No. And when you remember this is that critical voice, this is Clyde, this is Sharon, you have a degree of separation where then you get to respond to the critical voice. Instead of just inherently believing I'm not good enough or I don't belong here or I'm a fraud, when you hear those thoughts, you get to say, okay, what do I, the real me that's inside, not just the little critical gremlin voice in my head, how do I want to respond to that? Do I want to believe that? Do I want to question that? Do I want to ask what's really true here? Do I want to soothe that fear a little bit because I know that it's just trying to protect me? And then you get to feel more empowered and you can move through it, even though fear is going to show up. Your gremlin's going to show up. There's no eradicating the fear, but there is a better way of responding to it where it doesn't feel like it's running your life.
Honestly, it's a lot easier to chill out when you realize it's not you. Just that, the act of realizing it's not really you that thinks those things. It's the hardwired lizard brain gremlin that we all come pre-programmed with. It's just a lot easier to not take it seriously, not let it run your life. And you can still feel the fear, but then do it anyway.
Yep.
Because you know it's not actually the end of the world. So I feel like there are a lot more things to say about imposter syndrome, but I think that this is good for now.
Yeah, this is a good introduction.
Obviously, we want to hear what you guys think about imposter syndrome. Look at the dog barking again. I swear, she just can't keep her trap shut. We have a lot in common, the dog and I. So I will leave a link in the episode description if you want to come leave a comment. Tell us where you've experienced imposter syndrome. Hey, I know the internet is a slightly more safe, anonymous place, but we could be the first peoples that you tell about your imposter syndrome. We are happy to hear where you've experienced that and also to tell you you're silly and wrong for believing that. So come share if you would like to.
Reveal your imposter syndrome in the name of shining a light on it and making it a little bit less scary feeling. Please do that. And also just let us know how any of this resonates with you. Maybe you had imposter syndrome and you've worked through it in some way, in which case, let us know how. Let the rest of our people know.
Maybe there was an aspect of this we didn't even cover that you know about. We want to hear it.
If you resonated with this topic, we've got some other podcast episodes we want to lead you to next to follow up on this. So the first one is, the title is a little strange. Bring Your Own Butterbeer. Kristen interviews Rachel on her 30th birthday. This was from 2 years ago, almost 2 birthdays ago, because your birthday's coming up again.
Yeah, wow. Thanks for reminding me. You know how much I like birthdays.
I know. I love birthdays and you hate birthdays, and I have to tone it down around you.
I'm not the biggest fan. Other people's birthdays are fine. I don't like mine. But, sorry, it's just a cynical kind of like, ooh, it's just this really bad opportunity to measure up like what happened in the past year and then to be upset about everything that didn't happen. Type 4.
I was going to say type 4. I wonder if
type 4 tendencies.
I wonder if you polled type 4s about their feelings on birthdays, if that would be a consensus.
I think maybe. But I think type 4s are really good at finding the thing that's wrong with anything. So you could just say birthdays. You could say like giraffes. You could say candles. They could find something wrong with it. I say that very lovingly to all of my fellow type 4s, but I think you know. So I'm going to just say all the episodes, and I'm going to say what they have in common. There's a side chat from April 2020, so only a few months ago. But in pandemic land, that was April feels like a long time ago.
Yep.
Are you copping out or are you letting yourself off the hook?
Yep. Okay. And in the same theme here, we had a Magic 8-Ball episode, one that we republished back in April 2020 as well, about the grief of transitions.
Yeah. So all these episodes, what they have in common is they're all me trying to work through something. And this episode came out around the same time as the Bring Your Own Butterbeer and the Grief of Transition episode. So all of that is kind of like, to me, it feels like it's one in the same energy of which I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like they are sort of spiritually related.
Energetically connected.
And then the copping out or letting yourself off the hook, it's like, that was a new one from April, but we covered the same topic, which was my feelings about dating. We talked about that. So it's kind of like a 2 years later update on how I was feeling about it. Spoiler alert, not that differently. Maybe a little bit more evolved, but yeah, you can kind of see how much I evolved. If you listen to this episode and then that episode back to back, you might see, maybe you'll see something I don't. Maybe I should do that.
Sort of like weird time capsule of ourselves, or we can go back and like
this
see
is kind of,
where we were at.
It's kind of like a time capsule. It's more like a theme capsule of me trying to like work through how I feel about, some critical aspects of my life. This is kind of narcissistic that I created this list. But like, it is about to be my birthday, even though I don't like it. I guess I'm allowed to make it about me for a minute.
Sure. And I'm pretty sure other people are going to resonate with some of these topics too. You're not the only one who's feeling some of these things. So
yeah. Okay.
So we're going to be back on Friday with maybe our most important episode. Not an easy conversation, but a really important conversation. Yeah. It's a book club episode.
Yep. We are reading I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. And I think that you guys should read it or listen to it. The book, not the episode. Though you should listen to the episode too.
I mean, we're not giving you a ton of notice, but
hey,
it's a really short book. So if you can read it between now and Friday, great. If not, still tune in, but also still read the book. Yeah.
Maybe use the episode as the inspiration to read the book if you want to. But we had a very long conversation about that. And I think it was very enlightening and challenging in a good way. And there were so many parts of that book that made me like have such a strong reaction on so many different fronts.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys need to hear this one. So we will be back on Friday with that.
See you then.